When we think of ancient Egypt, we imagine pyramids, golden statues, and mummies. But these are only the surface of a civilization that lasted thousands of years. For every treasure uncovered, countless stories of daily life, trade, and innovation have been lost to time. Modern archaeology is not about collecting beautiful objects. It's about uncovering context, how cities were built, rulers governed, and ordinary people lived. From the lost golden city near Luxor to the sunken port of Thonis-Heracleion, recent discoveries reveal streets, workshops, trade records, and administrative systems, showing Egypt as sophisticated and interconnected. This series examines 6 to 7 major finds, explaining the research questions, methods, discoveries, and why they reshape our understanding of history. By the end, you'll see that Egypt is more than kings and monuments. It's a civilization full of secrets, precision, and ingenuity. Subscribe and like to follow this journey into the hidden world of ancient Egypt. Imagine walking across the sun-scorched west bank of Luxor. You've been told it's a city of the dead, where tombs and temples punctuate the desert like islands in a vast sandy ocean. But beneath your feet, hidden for over 3,000 years, lies a city alive with industry, administration, and the hum of human activity. This is the story of the rise of Aten, a city that has rewritten everything we thought we knew about the late 18th dynasty. How did the new kingdom function at the height of its wealth under Amenhotep III? How were workers, artisans, and administrators organized to fuel monumental building projects? And what does the city tell us about the rise of Akhenaten's radical theological revolution? These are the questions that drew archaeologists into the sands of Luxor and into a discovery no one expected. For centuries, Egyptologists assumed the west bank of Luxor was dominated by tombs and necropolises. We knew about the villages of Deir el-Medina, where tomb workers lived, but the settlements of the administrators, the artisans, and the industrial laborers? Those were missing, presumed destroyed, erased by time and agriculture. Historians had pieces of the puzzle, but the full picture of urban life, the beating heart of the empire, was lost. September 2020, Dr. Zahi Hawass leads a team between the temples of Ramesses III and Amenhotep III. Their initial goal? To find the long-lost mortuary temple of Tutankhamun. But as the team breaks ground, they uncover something extraordinary. Not a temple, but mud brick walls stretching in every direction, preserved up to 3 meters high. Within days, it becomes clear. They've found an entire city buried for millennia, almost intact. The archaeologists quickly shift gears. This is not a tomb, it's an industrial metropolis, a place where the wheels of the new kingdom turned. They uncover streets, workshops, bakeries, and storage facilities. Pots and tools lie in situ, untouched since Amenhotep III's reign. The stratigraphy, the layers of the site, confirm the date. The city was alive during Amenhotep III's rule, continuing into the early years of his son Akhenaten. The city's planning is astonishing. Sinusoidal or crinkle-crankle walls curve gracefully through the streets, not for beauty alone, but for engineering efficiency. These curves make the walls stronger while economizing on materials. They also control movement, funneling residents and goods through specific points, a clever method of surveillance and social control. The city's layout reveals a stratified society where workers, administrators, and craftsmen had clearly defined spaces, all monitored by the state.
This wasn't a city of leisure. It was a factory. Massive bakeries churned out bread for hundreds of workers. Workshops produced bricks stamped with Amenhotep III's cartouche, textiles, glass, and faience. Molds for amulets and decorative objects show that artistic production was centralized. There was even a meat processing area, demonstrating that the city could provision its population efficiently. This was industrial organization on a scale previously thought impossible for ancient Egypt. Inscriptions and artifacts anchor the city in history. A container of preserved meat bears a hieratic text marked Year 37, the final years of Amenhotep III's reign. Mud bricks and vessels carry his royal seal. Even the city's name appears in inscriptions, Thenitn, the dazzling Aten, or Rise of Aten. This ties the city directly to the theological shift toward Aten worship that would define Akhenaten's rule. Not everything is straightforward. Two unusual burials stand out. One shows a human skeleton bound with rope in a highly irregular pose, hinting at punishment or ritual. Another room contains the burial of cattle, an anomaly in a living city. And deaths treated in such a peculiar manner. The answers remain tantalizingly out of reach.
The rise of Aten changes how we understand the late 18th dynasty. It shows that Akhenaten's religious revolution did not emerge from a vacuum. The administrative, industrial, and urban structures were already in place, inherited from his father's sophisticated bureaucracy. We now have a vivid glimpse into daily life, the smell of baking bread, the hum of textile looms, the organized march of laborers moving materials under state oversight. Excavation continues. The western reaches of the city may extend to Deir el-Medina. How and why the city was eventually abandoned or transformed during the move to Amarna remains unclear. The anomalous burials, the everyday logistics, the industrial scale all pose questions that challenge our assumptions and excite our curiosity. The lost golden city of Aten is more than a discovery, it's a revelation. It reveals the inner workings of a civilization at the height of its power, bridging the worlds of Amenhotep III and Akhenaten, and allowing us to step into the streets, workshops, and bakeries of ancient Egypt as never before. It's a city alive, waiting for its secrets to be fully understood, and for us to imagine what life was really like at the peak of pharaonic civilization. For over 4.5 millennia, the Great Pyramid of Giza has stood as an icon of human achievement, an enduring testament to the ingenuity and ambition of ancient Egypt. Towering above the desert, its perfectly aligned blocks and monumental scale have inspired awe, speculation, and countless theories. How did a civilization thousands of years ago manage to quarry, transport, and assemble such immense stones without cranes, trucks, or modern machinery? Until recently, the process was largely a mystery. Herodotus wrote about it 2,000 years after the fact, relying on oral accounts and legends. Archaeologists could identify quarries at Tura and Aswan and the burial grounds of workers at Giza, but the administrative records, the receipts of empire, were missing. This vacuum gave rise to fringe ideas, lost technology, alien intervention, or secrets lost forever in the desert sands. Then, in 2013, the desert revealed a secret no one anticipated, not at Giza, but at Wadi al-Jarf, a remote Red Sea port some 180 kilometers away. A French-Egyptian team, led by Pierre Tallet and Gregory Marward, was excavating what turned out to be the oldest known harbor in the world. Among limestone caves used for storing boats, they uncovered hundreds of papyrus fragments, remarkably preserved in the hyper-arid environment. These were not religious texts or myths. They were administrative logbooks, daily records kept by men who moved the very stones that built the pyramid. Among these, Papyrus Jarf A and B stand out. Collectively, they are known as the Diary of Merer, a seemingly ordinary daybook that has transformed our understanding of pyramid construction.
Merer was a middle-ranking official, an inspector, responsible for a fleet of around 40 boatmen. His log is meticulous: dates, tasks, the number of men, even the specific cargo. For months in the 27th year of Pharaoh Khufu's reign, he documented the transport of high-quality white limestone from Tura to the Giza Plateau. He described journeys along the Nile, the landing at a place called Roshi Khufu, the harbor at the foot of the pyramid, and the delivery of each block. Each boat carried 30 blocks weighing 2 to 3 tons apiece, with 2 to 3 trips every 10 days. By modern standards, this is a sophisticated just-in-time delivery system designed to feed the ever-growing need of the construction site. Merer did not report to Pharaoh Khufu directly. He answered to Ankaf, Khufu's half-brother and vizier, essentially the project manager of the Great Pyramid. This hierarchy confirms that the construction was not chaotic or improvisational. It was a highly organized, state-run operation. Every boat, every worker, every stone was accounted for, meticulously logged in a bureaucratic system rivaling modern logistics. The infrastructure of Wadi al-Jarf itself is extraordinary. Archaeologists uncovered an L-shaped jetty stretching 150 to 200 meters, forming a sheltered harbor basin. 30 limestone caves carved into the cliffs stored disassembled boats and equipment, while 99 stone anchors, some still with traces of rope, attest to the scale of the fleet. This was no simple docking site. It was a sophisticated, managed port capable of sustaining a long-distance transport operation. The Diary of Merer is, quite literally, a window into the administrative mind of the Fourth Dynasty. It confirms what experimental archaeology had long suggested. The pyramids were built by human hands, ingenuity, and organization, not by magic or aliens. The Egyptians' methods relied on careful planning, disciplined labor, and logistical mastery. It shows the state's ability to mobilize resources across the kingdom, from the Red Sea coast to the heart of the Nile Valley. The diary also reshapes our understanding of Giza itself. References to Roshi Khufu imply sophisticated hydraulic engineering, canals and artificial basins that brought ships close to the pyramid, allowing massive stones to be delivered efficiently, minimizing overland hauling. Yet mysteries remain. The diary covers only several months in the 27th year of Khufu's reign and focuses on limestone for the casing stones. It does not describe the transport of the heavier granite blocks from Aswan or the ramps and tools used to lift them into place. Nor do we yet know the exact location of the so-called Pool of Khufu. These questions remain tantalizingly open, inviting further exploration. The Diary of Merer transforms the Great Pyramid from a timeless enigma into a story of people, planning, and precision. It allows us to imagine the daily life of the crews, the rhythm of boats along the Nile, and the organized pulse of a workforce operating under one of history's earliest bureaucracies. The pyramid was not the product of mystery, it was the product of meticulous record-keeping, extraordinary coordination, and human ambition, preserved for 4,500 years in the desert sands.
Imagine a city lost beneath the waves for more than 2 millennia. A city so rich, so vital to the economy of ancient Egypt that its disappearance reshaped the course of Mediterranean trade and diplomacy. This was Thonis-Heracleion, the great maritime gateway to Egypt before Alexandria ever existed. For centuries, Thonis-Heracleion was little more than a name on the margins of Greek texts. Herodotus, Diodorus Siculus and other chroniclers spoke of a bustling port where Heracles first set foot in Egypt and where Paris and Helen of Troy supposedly sought refuge. But no one had seen it. No ruins, no inscriptions, no trace on land. Scholars assumed it had succumbed to the sea, swallowed by subsidence or rising waters. Its story was nearly forgotten, eclipsed by Alexandria, which rose on the delta just a few centuries later. Then, in the year 2000, a team of modern explorers turned the tide of history. Underwater archaeologist Frank Gaudio, leading the European Institute for Underwater Archaeology in collaboration with the Egyptian Supreme Council of Antiquities, embarked on a high-tech survey of Aboukir Bay, 6.5 kilometers off the modern coast. Unlike traditional digs, this project relied on cutting-edge geophysics. The team surveyed 11 by 15 kilometers of seabed using nuclear magnetic resonance magnetometers, detecting anomalies in the sand and clay. Could these irregularities be the foundations of a sunken city? The answer lay beneath layers of silt revealed through hydraulic suction dredges. Slowly, painstakingly, the city began to emerge, perfectly preserved beneath meters of sediment.
Thonis and Heracleion were one and the same, a single city at the crossroads of Egyptian and Greek worlds. Among the most striking finds was a monumental black stele, 2 meters high, inscribed with the Decree of Sais. This royal edict, issued by Pharaoh Nectanebo I, dictated that 10% of all customs dues collected at the port, including gold, silver, timber, and processed wood, be devoted to the Temple of Neith at Sais. The decree tells us more than just taxes. It confirms that Thonis-Heracleion was the primary mandatory entry point for all Greek ships into Egypt. Every valuable import flowed through its gates, making it a choke point of commerce and power. The pharaoh's wealth and the state's control over Mediterranean trade depended on this bustling harbor. At the heart of the city stood the Temple of Amun-Gerib, a monumental complex dominated by colossal pink granite statues over 5 meters tall, representing a Ptolemaic king, a queen, and the Nile god Hapi. Hundreds of ritual objects, bronze figurines, lead amulets, and ceremonial vessels filled the temple precinct, revealing a city that was as religious as it was commercial. Even a red granite naos, a shrine within the temple, survived the centuries underwater. Beneath the collapsed blocks, divers discovered a 25-meter-long Ptolemaic galley, pinned in place by the falling masonry. Its construction is a fascinating hybrid of Egyptian and Greek techniques, a rare glimpse into the naval technology of the era.
So how did this city vanish so completely? Geological studies provide a chilling answer. Thonis-Heracleion sat atop islands made of clay-heavy Nile silt. When a catastrophic event, likely a combination of earthquake and tidal wave, struck, the ground underwent liquefaction. The earth lost its stability, turning to slurry, and the monumental buildings sank rapidly. This sudden burial preserved the city in remarkable detail, sealing artifacts in a time capsule of mud and sand. The rediscovery of Thonis-Heracleion reshapes our understanding of the late period. The Decree of Sais reveals an organized, state-controlled system of trade, taxation, and economic oversight. The wealth of the Said and Ptolemaic kings flowed directly through this port, making it the lifeblood of Egypt's engagement with the Greek world. Culturally, the city was a melting pot. Greek heroes were identified with Egyptian gods, Greek merchants mingled with Egyptian priests, and mercenaries walked the streets alongside local officials. This cosmopolitan environment foreshadowed the multiculturalism that would define Alexandria, blending religion, commerce, and diplomacy in ways previously only imagined.
Even with modern technology, only a fraction of the city has been excavated, roughly 5%, according to Frank Godio. Vast stretches of domestic quarters, harbor facilities, and secondary shrines remain buried under sediment. Preserving waterlogged artifacts, particularly organic materials like wood, is a major challenge. And while ceramic dating helps reconstruct the timeline, the precise sequence of the city's decline relative to the founding of Alexandria is still being refined. Thonis-Heracleion is Egypt's own Atlantis, a submerged metropolis that once pulsed with trade, devotion, and power. Its ruins tell a story not of myth, but of real people navigating the complex currents of economy, religion, and empire. Rediscovered beneath the waves, the city reminds us that history is never truly lost. It waits patiently, sometimes beneath the sea, until we have the tools, the curiosity, and the courage to uncover it. Picture Egypt in the aftermath of the New Kingdom, a land once unified under colossal pyramids and monumental temples, now fragmented, ruled by rival factions. The south was dominated by the high priests of Amun in Thebes, while in the north, kings claimed authority from Tanis in the Nile Delta. For decades, historians dismissed this period, the Third Intermediate Period, as a dark age, a time of poverty, decay, and lost grandeur. The royal tombs of the great pharaohs were long looted, and the delta's humid soil seemed to promise only ruin. Any hope of intact burials in Tanis appeared naive. Yet history has a way of hiding its surprises in plain sight. In 1939, French archaeologist Pierre Montet began excavating San el Hagar, the site of ancient Tanis. His aim was modest: clarify the layout of the great temple of Amun. The area was wet, muddy, and overgrown, unlike the arid isolation of the Valley of the Kings. Montet theorized that during this politically unstable era, kings might have sought the protection of temple precincts rather than desert tombs. And then, beneath the limestone floor, his team found what no one expected: a subterranean necropolis, perfectly preserved. In 1940, they breached the tomb of Susenes I, revealing treasures that would redefine our understanding of the era.
The centerpiece of the discovery was the anthropoid coffin of Susenes I, crafted not from gold but from solid silver. In ancient Egypt, silver was rarer and more precious than gold, imported from regions like Greece and Anatolia. The sheer weight of the coffin, over 90 kilograms, testifies to the immense wealth commanded by the Tanite kings, directly challenging the narrative of poverty and decline. Covering Susenes' face was a gold funerary mask, less naturalistic than Tutankhamun's, but equally magnificent. Lapis lazuli inlays, glass paste detailing, and the gleaming combination of silver and gold literally transformed the king into a living god, fulfilling the Egyptian belief that the gods had skin of gold and bones of silver.
The tombs of Tanis reveal a fascinating strategy of continuity and pragmatism. The granite sarcophagus that held Susenes was originally carved for Merenptah, son of Ramesses II, and transported north. Stone blocks, furniture, and monuments were salvaged from the ruins of P. Ramesses. This recycling was not a sign of impoverishment, but a deliberate choice, linking the Tanite kings to the illustrious Ramesside lineage and demonstrating their resourcefulness. Unfortunately, the humid delta climate destroyed organic materials. Wooden furniture, textiles, and even the mummies themselves decomposed into a black sludge, leaving only metallic and stone artifacts intact. This contrasts sharply with the preservation found in the arid Theban tombs, making Tanis a treasure of metalwork and monumental architecture rather than textiles or human remains. The treasures of Tanis rewrite the history of the 21st dynasty. These kings were not powerless remnants of a lost era. They commanded immense trade networks, importing silver, gold, and luxury goods, and they exercised authority in both political and religious spheres. Their tomb placement inside temple walls was strategic. Security mattered more than grandeur, and this approach protected their treasures far better than the isolated tombs in the Valley of the Kings ever could. This discovery also reshapes our understanding of Egypt's economy and diplomacy. Trade with the Aegean and Anatolia, control of the Delta, and symbolic linkages to past dynasties all point to a state that was far from decadent. It was thriving, resilient, and cunning.
Despite the extraordinary finds, questions remain. The organic decay limits our knowledge of diet, disease, and DNA. The complex political relationship between the Tanite kings and Theban priests, alliances, marriages, and power sharing is still being unraveled. In many ways, Tanis is a reminder that even in periods labeled as dark, brilliance and wealth can survive, sometimes hidden beneath layers of mud in history. The Silver Pharaohs of Tanis challenge our assumptions. They illuminate a period once dismissed as weak and chaotic, showing a civilization capable of importing riches, safeguarding its legacy, and projecting power through both wealth and strategy. The tombs whisper a lesson. Even in times of apparent decline, human ingenuity, resourcefulness, and ambition can shine as brightly as gold, or, in this case, silver.
Imagine standing in the shadow of the Pyramid of Unas at Saqqara. Beneath your feet lies a labyrinth of stone and sand, a hidden world where death was transformed into an art and a science. For centuries, mummification, the process that made the Egyptians famous, was shrouded in mystery. Our knowledge came primarily from three sources: the writings of Herodotus, forensic studies of preserved mummies, and depictions on tomb walls. Herodotus, writing over a millennium after many mummies were created, described the process in sweeping, almost poetic strokes: natron, cedar oil, and bitumen. Yet his account left scholars frustrated. The details were vague, sometimes mistranslated, often generalized. Archaeologists could analyze mummies and see the remnants of resins, oils, and salts, but they could not reconstruct the precise formulas or methods. Tomb paintings offered rituals, gestures, and symbolic actions, but they never revealed the science behind the magic. For centuries, the actual chemistry of mummification was a puzzle.
Then, in 2016, a breakthrough arrived. The Saqqara Site Tombs Project, led by the late Ramadan B. Hussein from the University of Tübingen, uncovered a subterranean complex south of Unas's pyramid. Dating to the 26th dynasty, this multi-level site included a specialized embalming workshop, the Wabet, and deep burial chambers. Within this workshop lay a treasure trove, over 100 ceramic vessels, some intact, many broken, but all containing residues of ancient substances. The key to the discovery was the combination of philology and chemistry. Each vessel was inscribed in hieratic, the Egyptian cursive script, with the name of its contents and instructions: for the head, for washing, for the wrapping. Using gas chromatography mass spectrometry, researchers decoded the substances preserved for over 2 millennia. Take antiu, long translated as myrrh. Chemical analysis revealed to be far more than a single resin. It was a sophisticated concoction of cedar oil, juniper or cypress oil, and animal fat. This was not a raw ingredient. It was a manufactured preservative, specifically engineered for embalming. Then there was Sephet, the sacred unguent.
Analysis showed a mixture of ruminant fat and plant oils used for general anointing and preservation. Some vessels contained formulas for the head alone, a combination of pistachio resin and castor oil, likely chosen for their antifungal and antibacterial properties, ensuring the skull remained intact for eternity. The chemistry of mummification was precise, targeted, and sophisticated. The Egyptians were not simply performing rituals, they were applying an empirical understanding of decay and preservation, centuries before modern chemistry would codify the principles. Perhaps the most astonishing revelation came from the origins of the ingredients. Some resins, like damar and elemi, came from distant tropical forests in Southeast Asia or Africa. The embalmers of Saqqara were sourcing rare substances thousands of miles away, connecting the Nile Valley to far-flung regions through maritime and overland trade routes. The death industry was an engine of globalization long before the modern era, demonstrating the economic and political reach of the Sayyid kingdom. This discovery reframes mummification as a scientific enterprise, not just a religious ritual. The Egyptians understood which chemical mixtures would preserve specific organs, prevent bacterial decay, and maintain the body's integrity for the afterlife. It also reveals a society deeply integrated into global trade networks, where the demands of mortuary practice drove the import of exotic resins and oils. In short, death was not passive, it was a laboratory. Embalmers were chemists, logisticians, and ritual specialists all in one. The preservation of the dead reflected not only spiritual beliefs, but also technical mastery and international commerce. Yet mysteries remain. These findings are specific to the 26th dynasty, a period of renaissance and openness to the Mediterranean and beyond. We cannot yet say whether such complex recipes were used in the Old or New Kingdoms, or if they represent the peak of embalming technology. Some volatile compounds may have evaporated over time, leaving gaps in our understanding. Even so, the Saqqara workshop provides an unprecedented glimpse into the chemical genius of ancient Egyptian embalmers, showing that the afterlife was not only a spiritual journey, but also a triumph of science. For centuries, Egyptology focused on gold, tombs, and treasures. Today, the real discovery is knowledge. The lost golden city of Aten reveals the daily life of administrators and workers. Thonis-Heracleion, preserved beneath the sea, shows Egypt's maritime trade and links to the Mediterranean. The Diary of Merer uncovers the precise logistics behind the Great Pyramid, proving human organization, not myth, built these monuments. The Silver Pharaohs and the Saqqara Mummification workshop reveal global trade, scientific mastery, and chemical innovation. Egypt was not isolated or declining. It was resourceful, connected, and sophisticated. Now, the true treasure is data, the streets, taxes, and recipes that reconstruct ancient life. Through their own records and decrees, the Egyptians speak across millennia. The brilliance of their civilization lies not in gold, but in human ingenuity, order, and vision.